No, we are exactly at 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning, good evening, and good afternoon for all the audience who's joining us from different parts of the world. And I'm here, Subhash Chandra Bose. I'm the Vice President of the Professional Consultants chapter. And today we are going to do a session on the topic which we are going to discuss about. And let me start with a small introduction about the FITIS. So this is the program that you are waiting for, the business agility in the digital stage. Let me do the introductions of the panel later. The intro on FITIS is that FITIS, the Federation of Information Technology Industry of Sri Lanka, shortly called as FITIS, was set up in 1996 with the purpose of giving the much needed focal point for the ICT industry in Sri Lanka. So FITIS is the apex body of ICT industry in the country, covering all major industry segments such as we have so many chapters covering those areas. The hardware chapter, the software chapter, education and training chapter, communication chapter, digital services chapter, office automation chapter, professional chapter, and professional consultants chapter, which is the chapter doing the program today. So the key mandates of FITIS are two-pronged. The first one is to lead and drive the digital information in Sri Lanka, moving towards a digital economy and encouraging private sector, public sector, and citizens towards digitization. To help develop and foster creation of intellectual property within Sri Lanka and assist companies in expansion to build global brands for these intellectual properties, the IPs. So we have our chairman, Indika De Zoysa, who's here. Let me do a brief intro about him as well. So Indika De Zoysa is a seasoned professional with over 27 years of experience covering digital ICT solutions, marketing, innovation, development, integration, and marketing development with prestigious organizations. Currently, he serves as the Vice President at Huabi Technology Lanka Company Private Limited. Indika serves as a member of the Functional Committee on General Education by the Presidential Task Force and also a member of the Standing Committee on Accreditation and Quality Assurance for Higher Education sector in Sri Lanka. Indika is qualified from the Chartered Institute of Marketing and an MBA holder from SMC University, Switzerland. Currently, Indika is reading for the Doctor of Business Administration from the University of Kelaniya as well. With that remark, may I call upon the chairman to give away some opening remarks, please.
Thank you for that introduction as well. So I think this is a great initiative which is taken by the professional chapter. Altogether, how technology can be taken up. So I'll give you a bit of a brief on the core work right now FITIS is doing as per the all around introduction given before. So we are very much focused on the digital economy currently. So aligned with the country agenda, what President has declared. So right now we are working on a 7-year plan, which is starting from 2023 to 2030, on how Sri Lanka need to align to the global trends of the digital economy, as well as how we leapfrog from the current status where we are in. Why I'm saying that from a digital economic point of view, all of us knows that the mature markets is reaching about 40% or more on the contribution for the digital economy, from contribution from the digital economy to the GDP. But Sri Lanka right now at about 5% contribution for the digital economic from digital economy to the GDP. So we definitely, as a nation, we need to leapfrog on the entire endeavor because, and also we strongly believe that we have to work on to overcome the current challenges what we are faced from economic point of view. So as a community, as FITIS as an apex body on the technology side, we are taking the complete leadership of doing this transformation together with the government, respective government agencies and the industry bodies together. So we will have a lot of activities and events coming along with that, as FITI is taking the leadership on the entire endeavor together with the industry. So this is also one of the initiatives in under that umbrella, which is educating the respective people on the specific topics as well. So stay tuned for the audience. We will have a lot more to come on different subjects and different areas as well. So I will not take much of time because we have a very interesting topic lined up. So I will leave it up to the speakers to take to the next level and give you the messaging from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indika. So thank you for those remarks and also giving some insight how FITIS is already in line with the Sri Lanka's vision towards the leap forwarding into the economic growth coming out of the current debacle that we are facing right now, and also the plans that we have to improve the revenues which is brought out of the technologies in Sri Lanka, ICT technologies, so that it will contribute to the growth of the GDP of the country. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead. So intro of the today's panel. We have two of those experts, Nirmalan N from Sri Lanka and Johann Botha from Netherlands. In fact, he is now living in South Africa. Let me give a small brief about Nirmalan. So Nirmalan is not a new figure to most of the people who are in contact with FITIS. Nirmalan holds over 32 years of experience in the IT industry, serving in various capacities, including many C-level positions. Currently, he serves as the CEO, Principal Consultant of KenVisa, and serves as an advisory Chief Process Officer for the clients. He is specialized and certified in global best practices, frameworks, and business process in the areas of IT and management, and a contributor to the global practice, and also serves as a subject matter expert in global panels. His experience includes working with more than 200 organizations worldwide, including many global brands and Fortune 500 companies covering several sectors. He has also served in many professional societies and industry associations, executive boards in various capacities, including board director, honorary secretary, vice president, president, chairman, etc. He is also a chartered fellow of BCS UK. Let me introduce the next panelist, in fact, the expert of the discussion today, Johann Botha. Johann Botha helps in building digital age capabilities and develops practical skills to help organizations solve problems, grow people, facilitate difficult change, dream, scheme, but most importantly, he make it happen. He will make it to reach the do level. He has authorized and co-authored 17 books over the last 2 decades, including Very SM, Unwrapped and Applied, the Exin Scrum Master and Product Manager Handbook, Competing in a Digital Future, the COVID 5 framework and process books, and the ISACA bestseller COVID for service managers. He has received global recognition for his work in digital transformation, agile, entrepreneurship, customer experience management, DevOps, leadership and business management and strategy, and also have received a lifetime achievement award from the ITSMF for contributing to the service management profession and the body of knowledge. Johann is the founder of GetITright internationally, the architect of Agile Adapt, the chief examiner for Exin Agile and Digital Transformation, and also a lecturer at Nelson Mandela University as well. Spanning 4 decades of experience, Johann works as a consultant, coach, a teacher, and a tech startup mentor, and holds academic qualifications in technology, social science, and business management. He is a chartered IT professional member of the BCS amongst various other professional bodies as well. So lots of interesting experience and qualifications and achievements by both of these top panelists. So let me invite the panelists as well as the conductor of the session to start the session today. I call upon Nirmalan to start the proceedings.
Thanks, Subhash. Good afternoon, Johann. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody over there. We are going to discuss, Johann, your mic is mute.
That would help. So, Nirmalan, just allow me to say thank you for the invite, and to Indica and the team at FITIS also to create the opportunity to speak to the audience today.
Yeah. Titra, can we have it on a dual mode? So we are going to discuss about business agility in the digital age. So straight away we'll jump into the topic. John, we have spoken enough on this before, but formally starting off, how do you define business agility?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Okay, so it's not following a method. It just means that you are able to be responsive to your customer needs and able to create value and new value to customers as soon as they require it. If you're able to do that, then I would say that you are agile. And I'm calling it agile with a little a instead of agile with a big A, which is some method that you learn.
Yeah. John, when you say being agile in that form, which also requires multiple things contributing towards it. Now, technology will be one part. Your systems will be another part. The whole organization culture sometimes need to be changed. Now, how do you see this, and how do you think that could be handled? Now, my question comes in two parts. One is, say, for example, if it is a very large organization, this transformation is going to be taking a long time. But if you are like small organization, then you will be very nimble. So how do you go about this?
Okay, so here's the thing that you need to bear in mind. And what we've done is we've actually created a digital transformation and agility method to help organizations through this process. The first thing that I want to say to you is you need to start, because there's far too many organizations that talks about this and doesn't do anything. The conversation is a cross-functional conversation. So it starts with leadership and strategy, and it ends with the responses of people in the operations context that actually provide products and services. So the whole organization. And you're quite right in saying that it is quite a substantial organizational change, and therefore it also needs to be managed. We found that it's easier to work iteratively in organizations on the agility or the transformation within the organization, rather to try and come up with some grand scheme and try and implement this. In fact, if you are going to try and do that, it's going to fail, guaranteed. So I suppose the first step is start where you are, and then progressively start evolving the organization to what it needs to be over time.
Okay.
I've lost your picture.
Oh, sorry.
While you're doing that, ask me the next question, then I can keep the audience busy so long.
Yeah, so having said that, now what will be the impact on IT? What will be the role of IT when it comes to this agility transformation?
Yeah, so two things that
are talking about business model based, or are we talking about the holistic thing?
Okay, I think we're talking about both, but I think two things that we need to remember when we talk about business agility and especially being agile in the digital age yes, IT is most probably one of the most important enablers of the change within the organization, but the initiative is not an IT initiative, it's a business initiative. So, I mean, I see far too many people spending far too much money on projects that all of a sudden is just called digital transformation projects, but it's a lie because it doesn't change the organization. And if the organization is not left in, changed, marked visibly, if it's not doing things differently, if it's not behaving differently, if it's not offering different value to the customer, then you can't say it's transformed. All you've done is you've just digitized. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with digitization, but just don't call it transformation because it isn't. Transformation means that you're starting with one state, and when you end, the state is different and markedly so. Not, it's not what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not a veneer. You must leave the organization fundamentally in a different state and in a better state to create value for its customers.
Oh, okay. So yes, as you said, digital transformation doesn't mean digitalization or digitization. The holistic transformation need to happen, which has a bigger pitch on the customer as well. Because most of the time, when you bring applications in front, when the systems come in front, take over the human beings, and the organizations get hidden behind. The customer reach out change, the perception change, the visibility will maybe become the service desk or whoever who is interacting or facing the customers. This creates a lot of issues in terms of customer service and many other things. Now, if you're talking about agility, customer perspective is one of the key, right, which plays a role. What is your take on that?
Okay, so I've mentioned that we've sort of defined a simple method that industrial age organizations can use to get going with transforming their organization and becoming more agile. And the interesting thing is that we don't start the conversation about the organization, we start the conversation about the customer. In fact, we start the conversation with the customer, deeply understanding what the customer is actually doing, and we use quite a lot of techniques that comes from the jobs to be done way of doing things. So jobs to be done is actually a very old concept if you think about it. Ted Levitt, when he said in the 1960s that companies don't buy quarter-inch drills, they buy quarter-inch holes. That's essentially what organizations need to do. They need to understand what the customer is buying. And if they want to understand what the customer is buying, they must understand what the customer is doing. Otherwise, they can't understand what value is for the customer. The trick is then to translate that into products and services offered by the organization. And in today's day and age, I haven't seen, or I've seen virtually very few products and services that's not technology enabled. So technology and IT plays a huge role in that process. So that now places a new emphasis on what IT needs to be able to do. Because if you're an IT organization, then sure, you need to go and develop your IT products and services. But what we're saying is, if an organization wants to survive in the digital age, even though it's not an IT organization, then IT needs to play a fundamental role in product development, and not only thinking about supporting the product team, because lots of the enablement of products and services today are technology based. So that changes the role of IT in organizations quite substantially.
Absolutely correct, Johann. Yes, you are basically referring to project focus to product focus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's another thing that I'm glad you actually mentioned that. I quite often say to people that now we're talking about agile as a method, that people need to realize that agile as a method is actually not a project management method. It's a product management method that revolves around continual improvement of the product. Now, the moment you realize that, then you realize that the metrics that we use to measure projects are inappropriate to measure agile delivery. Because it's not about a start and end. It's not about a fixed budget. It is about value. It is about continuous value delivery, and finding a way of measuring value from the customer's perspective, so that we can evaluate how much time and effort and money was spent so far, and whether that thing that we've created or things that we've created are actually valuable enough that the organization benefits enough to invest that amount of time and effort and money into it. Yeah. So the metrics of an agile organization is not the same as the metrics of an industrial age organization. They're quite often opposing metrics, and by measuring metrics that comes from scientific management, which incidentally was never very scientific, it reinforces the wrong behavior of the organization, and then people in the organization don't change. So business agility is not about just learning a new method. It's actually about, and I think you sort of hinted towards that in the beginning of the conversation, it's about building a completely different, eventually building a completely different business model, a way that we operate and interact with customers.
Yeah, John. So basically, you are stressing on value-based delivery and outcome-based delivery. So in that case, the organization's measurement criteria need to change. And also, the question comes, value for whom? Value, is it for organization or for the customer? So now this, how does this equation goes?
You see, there's two things that happened in the previous. There's a lot of things that happens in the previous century that causes harm for us today. But in the economic world, when the Chicago School of Economics sort of propagated this idea that the purpose of an organization is to make profit for its stakeholders or shareholders, fundamentally changed behavior, and negatively changed behavior in organizations. I rather like Peter Drucker's view of the purpose of an organization. Peter Drucker said that the purpose of an organization is to create and keep customers. And you're only going to create and keep customers if you provide value to customers. So, what is valuable for you must be a result of keeping customer happy. It shouldn't be the focus. I mean, if you think about lean thinking and lean leadership, that whole way of thinking about work and organizations, and that's not new. I mean, lean is now 70 years old, and people go on as if it's something completely new. But Toyota already in the early 1950s said that value should always be viewed from the end customer's perspective. And just because it's difficult for everybody in the organization to understand that, shouldn't mean that we shouldn't try. In fact, there's enough tools for us to be able to do that, because if we have the conversation cross-functionally in the organization, and it's fairly easy to facilitate that conversation. You do a value stream map. Then everybody in the organization can understand what is their contribution towards creating value for the end customer. If you don't create value for the end customer, guess what? They're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else. They're going to find value where they believe they can find value. So it doesn't matter how much you concentrate on your own organization, that will always be the wrong focal point.
Yeah. So since you were talking about agile, looking into agile methodologies.
Yeah.
There are many methodologies. Actually speaking, there are around 22 methodologies of lightweight and heavyweight.
Yeah.
But majority of them, the heavyweights, basically stress on some kind of planning.
Yeah.
So when you say planning, that has a bit of a contradiction towards the agility.
Absolutely.
So now, what are we talking? Agility in terms of doing the work, or the holistic approach, or in terms of agility, are we saying nothing to be planned?
Yeah, I think there's this misconception that agile means not planning. That's not true. But agile doesn't mean that you try and plan what's going to happen in 3 years' time, because you don't know. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what the world is going to look like in 3 years' time. So it's a pointless exercise to actually try and do detailed planning. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a roadmap of where you want to go at a very high level. But the detailed planning should be left for when it's appropriate to do so. And this is what I like about the lightweight approaches to agile, is all of them reinforces this thing that you plan when you need to do. The other advantage of that approach is that the people doing the planning is the people who's doing the work. So for me, if you want to choose a agile method, so that's not agile with a big A within your organization, then you need to go back to the 12 principles defined in the Agile Manifesto. So for me, I see that as heuristics, where you can test whether the method you want to apply keeps to, okay, and when I say rules, I mean a heuristic. Yeah, I don't mean a fixed rule. Yeah, keeps to the spirit of the principle. Yeah. And many of the agile approaches that's been chosen by large organizations today are not agile. They are, in fact, industrial age thinking, process-based thinking, where the owners of the approaches realized that they were in trouble because agile is becoming popular, and they clad old behavior in new terms. And unfortunately, organizations who don't want to change look at that and then say, oh, that's the method for us. We want to use that method. Why? Because we don't essentially have to change. But that's actually just BS, and I'm not talking about British standards here. Yeah. If you realize there's a benefit in a different approach, then you must be willing to embrace that approach and do it well. Yeah. So, for instance, there's some of these more heavyweight methods that talks about 6 month planning cycles, 3 months planning cycles. The moment you hear that, the moment you hear the word release, you know that you're in trouble, and that you actually you're going through the motions. So you've chosen a method, probably because you desperately want to be able to tell everybody that you're agile, but the evidence will not show that, because the behavior didn't change within the organization. And I'm very outspoken about this, and lots of people don't like me because I say things like that. I won't mention product names today, but I think I've said enough so that people can figure out which of these methods I'm talking about.
You mean me, stating those for your comments.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last statement.
I asked you, would you mind me stating some of the methods and for your comments?
Oh, you can go ahead. I just told you what the conditions were.
Okay. So basically, we have a lot of heavyweight methodologies like Agile PM coming in front, Prince 2 Agile, SAFe coming in, Nexus. There are many more, but these are commonly used.
Okay, I just want to quickly comment there. I don't see Agile PM as a heavyweight method. In fact, it's one of the two methods that I teach. So I like DSDM. Yeah. Nexus is an add-on to Scrum, and I'm a big Scrum fan. You know that my method of preference is Scrum, but sometimes we're working in complex environments, and we need to coordinate work. Now, Nexus is incorrectly seen as a scaling mechanism. It's not a scaling mechanism, it's a coordinating mechanism, because within a Nexus sprint, we always focus on one iteration. So we don't break the rules. Yeah, we don't forward plan. We coordinate, and that's fine. We should coordinate. It would be stupid if we don't coordinate if lots of people need to work together. So if you ask me, how do you scale? First of all, I'll tell you, don't scale. And then you're going to say, but we can't get work done if we don't, lots of people are involved. And then I would say coordinate. And if you then ask me, how do I do that? Then I'd say use Nexus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So here comes the question. Now, if you say being agile in an organization, organizational agility, if we are not supposed to be coming out with long-term plans, how does the senior management go about it? Because that's a tradition that they have been following for a long time.
Yeah. So remember two things there. I didn't say you shouldn't have long-term plans. I said you shouldn't have detailed long-term plans. You should do enough planning to know where you're going to and more or less when you're going to arrive.
Right. So that's a roadmap here, Doc.
That's a roadmap that I'm talking about. Yeah. Now, a roadmap is planning. Yeah. The point is it's going to change. Yeah. Because the environment around you is going to change and you don't know how. And when you change, you need to be flexible and agile enough to be able to respond to that change. If you've invested a lot in detailed planning up front, it becomes really, really difficult to change direction. Yeah. And if you haven't made that investment, then you're not as invested in that planning process. Yeah. We as human beings don't like to do work and then not to have to use that work. It makes sense. I mean, that's just the way we operate. So the best way to then be able to be flexible is don't do that detailed work. Yeah, because then you're not invested in it. And I can't remember what the second thing was that I wanted to mention. Just ask your question again. Did you note it down?
No, I asked
That's
you.
Okay. We'll get to it eventually.
So absolutely,
go for it.
People go about talking about strategy, and talk about long-term planning, whereas long-term planning in full scale is not going to be possible. So they should have gone with a roadmap and then approach each milestone with a strategy based on how the entire ecosystem reacts and behaves. And in executing the definite, they can come out with a defined, devised method, which is the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing that I wanted to just mention. When you do long-term forward planning, what you tend to do is the people who's doing the planning is not the people who understands the work that needs to be done. And there's enough scientific academic evidence to know or to believe by now, because you just have to look at the evidence, that the further the decision point is from where the work is done, the worse the outcome is going to be. Yeah. And that's a completely different mindset that people need to adopt, because that also means that you can't talk to a executive within an organization and ask them what they want or what the organization needs in terms of delivering a new product. Or take software, for instance. How many times have organizations developed software based on a spec? They showed it to the users, and the users tell them, but we can't use this. Yeah, this is not how we do things. This is not how the real world operates. Now, isn't it better to, when you're busy writing some code, to be able to call on a user and say, do you like this? Does it work? Yeah. Is this how you do it? Oh, not. Okay, so let's tweak it. Does this look better? Yeah. And Agile gives you that opportunity to do that at least every iteration. Yeah, because we end an iteration typically with a review. Now, people think a review is a sign-off. It's not a sign-off point. It's a feedback point. Yeah, it's a place where you can show and tell. Yeah, and then also hear how your community's world is busy changing. So it's also the opportune time to add new things into your product backlog. Yeah. The problem in organizations is that we are faced with a bunch of performance metrics that contradicts the behavior that we expect from the organization. And, once again, Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets done. If you measure the wrong things will get measured. You can't blame Agile then because it doesn't work. You must blame your own stupidity because you weren't prepared to actually change the organization, the way that the organization operates. And it's important to think about that, because if you want to survive in the digital age, you need that agility. You need to be flexible. You need different metrics. You're going to need different customer metrics also, incidentally, because customers want different things now. Different things are important to them. And if you measure the wrong stuff, you're not going to get the right outcomes. As you said, value is about outcomes for the customer. And as a result, you're going to lose the business. As simple as that. I often say to people, stop thinking about what Frederick Taylor said. You need to think about what Frederick Laloux said. Frederick Laloux is most probably taking it a step further than what most people are willing to do, because he's talking about organizations with no management.
Yes. Johann, that brings me a different question now. Now, look, you are talking about the agile practices which is commonly done, the hardcore agile, decision making and the work estimation done by the people who are actually going to do the work.
Yeah.
So at the lower level of the hierarchy, this is possible, but at the higher level, in terms of direction, right? Like, how does that works? Because obviously, the work which is done at the bottom end, maybe with less experience, more siloed focus, right? But when you look at the higher level, we have a bigger holistic purpose, and the decision making need to get driven from that point of view.
Yeah.
So, how do you, see this in terms of decision making or estimations being done from the people who actually do it?
Okay, so two things that you need to bear in mind here.
Sorry, that way.
First of all, you shouldn't work in siloed teams. One of the key precepts of agile working is to work cross-functionally. Yeah. The idea is, if you work in an iteration, with the team working on that iteration should have all the skills to get something done. So that's very important, and most organizations don't get that right. They want to run agile in silos. It's never going to work. It wasn't designed that way. So you're just spinning the wheels here, because there's going to be so many interdependencies that you're never going to get anything done. The second thing that organizations don't want to do is they used to making a project the project officer's problem. Excuse me. So they want to sit and give a bunch of ideas, and then somebody else must take it away and go and make it happen. If it just doesn't work, then they've got somebody to blame. Now, I see lots of organizations are trying to do the same thing with agile. So if you've got, so for instance, if you're an IT shop that's doing work for customers, even if it's customers within your own organization, and the product owner sits in IT, you're not going to get it right. So how do you make that happen? How do you get that business input? The ownership of the product must remain that of the person or the group or the unit who actually realizes the value by selling it to the customer. So don't go and take junior people who's just completed college, send them on a product owner course and then call them product owners. They don't own anything. Ownership means that if it goes wrong, it's your fault. If your product doesn't work for your customers, whose fault is it? Find that person within the hierarchy of the organization. They should be the product owner. And you said that there's lots of admin to do. No, there isn't. It's relatively easy to get the team to give you input in terms of ordering your product backlog. It's not a big job. And let me just quickly say something about product backlogs. If you've got more than 100 items in your product backlog, you must probably be doing it wrong. Why? Because you can't think about so many things, and if you want to think about 300 things, it's going to take you 3 years to get there, and then you break the rules. So what are the most important things that you need to do now, at this moment, that will add value to your customers? Focus on those things. Make sure that the product owner helps the team to understand why it's important to the customer, so that the team can make better decisions in terms of what to focus on, what to work on, how to build things, and what order to build things. But the detailed plan is not going to make it better. All that you're going to do is you're going to just do Scrum fall. So if you come from a rugby playing nation like I do, you know that Scrum fall is not nice. It's sore.
Yeah, Johann, you were talking about cross-functionality. That also brings the other point, which is important in agile environment, is cross-functionality and learning culture becomes a prerequisite. Now, if you look at the software organization, the software engineers are hired, QA engineers are hired separately. And when they come in, we are asking them to do agile, and we expect them to behave in a cross-functional manner, to do everything which is possible, which obviously brings a lot of productivity if they can actually do it. But that's not the original role that they were hired for. Neither they basically went through that cross-functional teaching in multiple silos, are not being taught anyway. So when they come in, we expect them to do this. Now, they can do it. Now, there is another issue on this. When they move to the next organization, basically they are looking at their career. So what they have done on a specific role is what matters, right? So this basically creates a bit of a contradiction, because most of the software engineers in this part of the world, when they are asked to do QA activities, they don't show a very welcoming approach. So what is your...
Okay, so there's two things that you touched on. Number one is, if you bring somebody in the organization, pair them with somebody with experience. I, in any case, think that pair programming is a good way of operating. And if you do that well enough, you don't need testers. And there's nothing that says a programmer can't test their own work. Yeah. As long as the heuristics are well defined and the criteria is well known, there's no reason why you can't test your own work. Yeah. Here's the thing though, remember, if you're in a agile team, the team is accountable for what they deliver. So if you say, but I've got a quality problem, you know, if I allow that type of behavior, it means that you don't keep the team accountable. Yeah. Because if they're accountable, they're going to feel the pain. Yeah. So yeah, pair people, transfer skills. There was something else that I wanted to say because I said two things. The career hierarchy thing. I think it's only true because there's not enough organizations that's truly transformed. If you look at the unicorn organizations, the high-tech organizations, they expect different behavior and they actually employ based on attitude more than position. Yeah. And it's actually an interesting concept. We find it much more prevalent in the Far East and in the Northern European countries, where there's an understanding that seniority and reward is not connected to a title. It's a typical Anglo-American fallacy that you should be rewarded because your title is more important in the structure of the organization. One of the reasons, most probably, it's a good idea to conduct a war against structure also. I know that makes me an unpopular voice, but there's far too many layers of meaningless, seemingly valuable management activities. Here's the thing, many of these hierarchical approaches that was defined in an age where most of your employees were not knowledge workers. So that means that people needed to be supervised. Yeah. Otherwise they will create a mess. Well, if you want to employ people who don't know what they're doing, because that's supervised people, yes, then you should be blamed for that hiring decision. I would rather hire smart people who can think, that I can give guidance to, and I can change the role in the organization to servant leadership, where the purpose of a leader is to help the team perform better than being somebody that tells somebody how to do their job. In any case, most managers don't know how to do the job that their people are doing, quite honestly. You may think you do, but when you did the job 20 years ago, technology was different. You don't have a clue. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what you're saying is your titles basically doesn't resonate the knowledge.
Yeah. And people, new organizations, progressive organizations hire for results. Part of that result is not how smart you are as an individual, but how smart you can make a team. For instance, Netflix has got this concept that they call brilliant jerks. Now, I know a lot of brilliant jerks, and I'm quite sure everybody in the audience also know brilliant jerks. Now, these are the guys who are super technically competent, okay, but the world always revolves around them, yeah, because they never share and they never, transfer skills, and I call it the hero syndrome also. Now, the policy in Netflix is they don't hire brilliant jerks. It doesn't matter how brilliant they are. Yeah. If you can't work well in a team, if you can't share, if you can't help people develop, they don't want them. And I think organizations need to take a leaf out of the book of Netflix. Incidentally, go and read the book No Rules Ruled.
Yeah. So, Johann, just deviating from the discussion now to just address the other areas. What do you think would be the role of PMO if there could be a PMO in the business agility perspective?
If if Agile is a product management approach and not a project management approach, I think I've just given you the answer.
Yeah, I know.
So that doesn't mean that people in those roles are not valuable, but we need to learn new skills to be able to help organizations create value in different ways. Yeah, and unfortunately, people say, but that's really harsh, and then we don't want to do this stuff. But just bear in mind, in the 1960s, in manufacturing, there were whole departments that did statistical analysis. And then we started with MRP, and all of those people lost their jobs. This is not the first time in history that people would need to reskill themselves to make themselves valuable in the organization. Yeah. What happened to all of the factories that made slide rules when calculators came out? It's very unfair towards the people in those factories, wasn't it? But it's life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Johann, what is the role of DevOps going to play? Because DevOps currently is playing a role it is taking up when it comes to agility.
Yeah. So I don't see DevOps and again, now we're talking about a method, right? Because DevOps is not a thing. It's not it's not like Agile that you can say it's a mindset or a culture or whatever. Yeah, DevOps is a method. For DevOps to work, you need to have an Agile mindset, number one, and you need to understand lean thinking. Yeah, I see DevOps as an extension of the development life cycle, and it's. You can know a lot about technology and being able to build wonderful tool chains, but if you don't understand what it is the organization is trying to achieve, if you don't understand agility and you understand value from the customer's perspective, then you can do actually more harm than good. Yeah. Does that mean that organizations shouldn't embrace DevOps? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying embrace it, but embrace it in the right way. Sorry, I've got some sun on my face now and I can't get away from it. So you just have to bear with it.
So, Johann, what is your suggestion for organizations which are adopting these practices purely through tools?
A fool with a tool is still a fool. If you're going to do the wrong things, you're just going to do it faster and more consistently. And that's why it's so important to start with lean thinking and the agile principles, the understanding the reason why you want to behave differently. Yeah. The tools is going to help you to realize that value faster, or to break the organization faster. Yeah. Or to maybe not break the organization, but introduce a number of risk factors in the organization that the organization will eventually have to pay the price for.
Yeah, I think we have only 2 minutes more. Okay, just let me ask you a question. Now, we are talking about business agility in the digital age. Now, we are very much influenced and we are very concerned about the AI. So do you think in future, with the business agility supported by AI, the organization sizes could shrink and there could be individual organizations or very small number of people sitting inside organization? That kind of a concept may emerge?
Okay, so let me give you this example from history. When radical automation started within the industrial age in the early 70s, the experts predicted that 70% of people will be without jobs because they're now not working in factories. Has it happened? No. Is it going to happen in future? No. People will just do different stuff. I think the important thing here is, and incidentally, this was written in a book that was published in 1970, Alvin Toffler, Future Shift. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read or write, but it's those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn at a rapid pace. What is this, 50 years ago? Yeah, 53 years ago. We best learn to learn, unlearn, and relearn at a rapid pace. Yeah, what's interesting is I'm a big Tom Peters fan also. And Liberation Management, I think, was one of his most fundamental works. That was written in the mid-90s, I think, early 90s, mid to early 90s. Tom Peters at that stage already said that if you don't replace 80% of your skill set every 12 years, was it 12 years? Sorry, 10 years, then you are not commercially employable. I reckon that's most probably about 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, and maybe not 80%, but 60% of your skill set. If you don't replace it every 2 to 3 years, don't wonder why you can't get a job, because you're not appropriate for the job market. Yeah, it's moved on, and that's why agility is so important. Is you need to do it from a personal perspective also. You need to be agile. You need to be agile in terms of your own thinking about your career, things that interest you, what you learn, what you're willing to learn, things that you're willing to do, where you see yourself in future. But that means that you have to invest in understanding where the future is going. So I'm really sorry about this light. It's very disturbing.
I think the sunlight is coming inside. Johann, yes.
There's slats in front of my office, and it comes through a little gap like that.
Like I said, yes, change stops where the learning stops, right?
Yeah, well, there's a saying translated in Afrikaans to English, adapt or die, I think, that's the only two choices you've got. Yeah. If you don't adapt, well, you're dead. Choice is yours. And that applies to organizations and individuals and people in organizations and roles within organizations. If you don't adapt, you're not going to have a place in the future. Yeah. You have to evolve. Yeah. You have to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, Johann, thanks a lot. I'm getting signals regarding the timing. So thank you so much for sharing, but we couldn't discuss. There is a lot more to ask you from whatever I have told. Unfortunately, the timing is troubling on one end. So let me pass thing to Thitira. Do you have any questions, Thitira, from the audience?
No questions.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Okay, I've scared everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Johann, for joining us from South Africa, and all the audience. Thank you very much for joining. Hope that we can have a part 2 to continue the discussion, because we haven't even finished our 25%. So let's look forward to meet Johann again in discussing further on the business agility. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Once again, thanks for the invite. And it's always a pleasure to talk, Nirmalan. Stay well, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thitira, over to you.
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll wind up the session now. Thank you, Mr. Johann. Thank
Pleasure.
you, Mr. Nirmalan.
Stay well.
Thank you.